All right, it is here, the video I've been working on all day. It is a flipping, pitching, and finesse rod breakdown on what I use specifically, from spin rods to bait casters. Let's get into it. All right, so jumping into it, what you gotta start off with when you're running a more finesse rig: spin, 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 spin casting. You need a spin rod. It really helps. It won't finesse if you're running a 75-pound braid and you're trying to jig a little worm on a pole that's not meant for finessing a tiny rubber bait like that. What you want is some light line or even some medium line. You can probably use between 6 to 10 pound line would probably be the best for some finesse rigs. Any small rubber lure worms, Senkos, swim baits, flukes, even craw. If you want to jig, you can do that, but I prefer punching and using jigs with the heavier rods because you're going to be in more cover when you're punching mats and whatnot. But yeah, so finesse rods, spinning rods, gotta have those. Then next, hooks. Always gotta have them bass offset hooks. And I am running 6 cents. If you're not gonna run some offset hooks, I do suggest you run some jig hooks, some crappie jigs, like 1/16 ounce. If you're not doing that and you're just running the regular hooks, you wanna run weightless, run it weightless. But if you're not gonna run it weightless, you're gonna need some split shots or some worm weights. I like split shots because I could choose and determine the amount of weight I want on the end of it, and it's a lot smaller and compact rig instead of a big bullet weight that slides up and down. Yeah, you can get a bobber stopper and all that other stuff, but it doesn't make a big difference. This one is optional. You don't have to take it, you don't have to jump in there and do it. Some snap swivels. I love snap swivels. They help me out on quickly changing and retying my rigs for any finesse sort of profile. And this is gonna look a little odd, but this is what I do. This is how I caught my PB on a finesse. So what I am running is a split shot with a snap swivel to the hook and the bait. The reason I use the snap swivel helps me switch out my baits fast and keeps me from having to tie knots. Keeps me on that good life. And then when the fish twists and spins, the snap swivel keeps my line from twisting and knotting up, losing a fish. Many positives. The only downside is the weight and the snap swivel are a little bit off, but when you're running a finesse worm or Senko, it doesn't matter because that worm still has that same action you need. So in the long run, it's your choice whether you want to run a finesse 6 to 14 pound line or whatever on a spinning reel, or if you want to run a finesse rig on a bait caster. But like I said, I have my preferences. I love running my jigs on heavy bait casters, and I love running my super finesse baits on my finesse rods, my spin rods. They really do the job, and if you're gonna go out there and catch fish, I'm telling you, if you use some of these techniques and tips, they'll help you catch more fish. The line and the pole and the baits really make a difference, and especially how you fish them. So now that we've gone over the spin rods, let's go over the flipping and pitching and mat punching rigs. So the way I got this set up specifically is the weed punch and craw. So I could flip or punch right into them thick weeds, hydrilla, canopy covers, whatever's chilling on the bank that's super thick that I can't just throw a light bait through. I have to throw something heavy through, like an ounce jig. Next, on the light, medium light pole, I got a light jig for lighter jigging for the smaller fish, maybe creek fishing. Always fun to pitch and flip around that cover. And then last but not least, the medium half-ounce jig. I run a half-ounce jig for the all-around kind of light covers, light to heavy covers. This is more of like a super heavy cover This is more of like an all-around, just being light and weedless, not really hitting a lot of cover, but light cover, or just small creek fishing banks that have little light cover. This is for medium to heavy cover, not really too heavy, because obviously you can't flip a half-ounce jig through some heavy cover or punch it through some heavy cover like you would an ounce jig over here, but definitely can get around some good cover, definitely work its way in the hydrilla and do its job as a jig. And then jig box, just a rundown on some of the jigs. I got 6 cents swim bait jigs. These are some of my favorites for when you're just searching, you want to throw a search bait. These 6 cents are really awesome. They come in 1/16 ounce and 1/4 ounce or 3/4 ounce, something like that. Really nice. They're not weed guarded, but they're definitely awesome. These are some jigs that I've thrown some skirts onto, or new skirts onto. They don't have weed guards, so they're more for like open cover, places that are completely weedless. And then here's another ounce jig for punching, has the weed cover. All my weed cover jigs are on the left. I got a red jig, white Guggen swim jig, brown jig, green jig, whatever you want. Just try to match the color of the water is usually the best idea. Obviously, if the water is a reddish tint, a red craw would probably be good. If the water is a brownish tint, a brown craw would be good. Other than that, yeah, it's my rundown. So, down to that, baits now. We got the Gets It grub and curly tail grub. These are really good grubs. We got the Ozark Trail hammerhog, some of my favorites. They're like a huge version of a craw. Then we got some normal miscellaneous craw, the Guggen Kraken craw, some junior blacklight craws, beaver tail craws. Beaver tail craws are usually the best. I got some of these custom baits ordered online from Stretching Lines at Instagram, and quality baits. I'm telling you, I got days of craws, just days. I can't even name the amount of craws, and this specifically is my craw and jig bag, and this is my jig box. So I usually carry those when I'm flipping and punching, but when I'm getting finessey, like for the spin rods, I'm gonna run some swim baits, robo worms, zoom worms, and color really matters. Like obviously you're not gonna go throw a white worm in a lake that doesn't have any bait fish. You're gonna want to throw some brown worms. So usually my go-to, like 100% go-to, is zoom. I love zoom. I love the zoom finesse worms. I just love everything about them. The action, the way they move. You can cut them, you can shorten them, you can use a piece of them. They work for a really long time and they last forever. Got some Senkos. Can't go wrong with the Senkos. Got some creature worms with a little bit of tail action. Always great. Flukes. White flukes, green flukes, blue flukes. Name what kind of flukes. Speed worms, those are always good. Yeah, those are just a handful of my finesse baits for my finesse rods. Thanks for checking out my go-to, and good luck ripping their legs.